Then we got a saga going on. The saga. Which one you're asking? Um, well, it's the saga of Noel Mikaelian. And Noel Mikaelian, who's Noel Mikaelian? Oh, well, he's the WBC World Cruiserweight Champion. And he is promoted by Don King Promotions. And there's been an ongoing question of who is Noel Mikaelian going to fight. He needs to defend his belt. Ryan Rizicki was a guy that was supposed to, and then eventually fought. That was supposed to be a killer fight. And it was anticlimactic nonetheless. But Mikaelian had an offer for Jay Opetaia not too long ago, and inside sources basically say that the sides couldn't come to a financial agreement. That's Opetaia's side, which is Zuffa, and Mikaelian's side, which is Don King. Then it came out that David Benavidez wanted to unify and get the WBC belt, so it made sense for him to fight Noel Mikaelian and then fight for a unification. And quite honestly, if you recall a step before that, Jay Opetaia is the guy who David Benavidez is kind of running from. That's the fight everybody wants to see. So there's a little added drama there, and I believe, in my opinion, David Benavidez thought that he could beat Noel Mikaelian easier than he could potentially beat Jay Opetaia. So that made sense that fight was going to take place, and they were talking about potentially having that fight in December. It was dragging on, and meanwhile, Noel Mikaelian, he's not fighting anybody. So everybody's waiting around. There was an injury at some point, and then all of a sudden, it's announced today that Jay Opetaia is signed to fight Noel Mikaelian September 12th on the undercard of my man Ryan Garcia taking on my other man, because I like Connor Ben. I like Connor Ben. I was going to say Connor Ben just as much, right? So on the Garcia Ben undercard, to have Jay Opetaia and Noel Mikaelian fight for the ring belt, the Zuffa belt, and the WBC belt, because Mikaelian has already admitted that he's going to fight him. His team announced it today, and it's up on BoxRec. Here's the problem, boys and girls. You got Noel Mikaelian, who is signed with Don King. Don King was quoted today saying that he wants the Benavidez fight and that he hopes that Noel Mikaelian is going to do the right thing and honor his deal with Don King. Now, I'm sitting here wondering, no, wait a minute. We all know you can't, if there's a contractual deal between a fighter and a promoter, or a fighter and a manager, another fighter's or it doesn't have to be another fighters, it could another promoter or manager can't negotiate with them except through their management or their promoter and manager, because there's other managers involved, and they're speaking that they're saying, yeah, we want what's best, we want to get as much money as we can, and this is the fight. I don't know how it's going to unfold, boys and girls, because truthfully, if Don King does have a signed deal with Mikaelian, I don't care what kind of deal Mikaelian allegedly signed with Zuffa to fight on this card against Jay Opetaia. I think that the fight could be blocked legally, unless there's something else that's going on that we don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see, because let's face it, it's a month away. It's a month away, a month and a few days away. September 12th. So, I think. Listen, I talked about this just before the show. Okay, here's if this happens, if the Mikaelian fight with Jay Opetaia happens, and it's on a Zuffa card, which it should be, and the Zuffa title is on the line, which Jay Opetaia has, and the ring belt is on the line, which Jay Opetaia has, and the WBC belt, which Noel Mikaelian has, is on the line. That tells us, and keep in mind, the Ryan Garcia Conor Ben fight is for Ryan Garcia's WBC belt. And that fight is for the belt. So all of a sudden, for their belt, it's being sanctioned, right? So all of a sudden I'm starting to say, well, all these sanctioning bodies, they're all teaming up. They're running in fear from Zuffa boxing, right? But it sounds like they're willing to just close their eyes as long as they get the sanctioning fees, because they're still getting sanctioning fees. This is the way it could work. This is the way everybody could still run around with the little trinket belt and say, I'm a champion. We just talked about the heavyweight and how effed up that division is all of a sudden. It was pretty cool when there's one champion and we say Usyk, hell, he's defending his title. Oh, so and so, he didn't beat him. Okay, who's next going to challenge for the world heavy? I mean, that's the way it was, and it makes it so much easier as a fan. And all the sanctioning bodies were getting their cut because it was a unified belt. Everybody was happy. And then in this case, Usyk, relinquished all of the belts. Sometimes they're supposed to fight a mandatory for one belt, and they're fighting somebody else for another belt, and they strip them, and that's how they become vacant. But nonetheless, it's a joke. So if this fight does happen, which it's going to be interesting to see, um, because it's going to show me that either there wasn't an ironclad contract along the way, or there's some cash being passed around behind the scenes, because that's the only way. So and if it does happen, it's going to really show me, and it should be showing you, that this is going to work. Zuf is just going to be, um, you know, eh, allegedly they'll be the ones that outbid some of the fights and give the fighters more money. And all I can think of is what Shakur Stevenson said, and he said, I signed with, what did he say? I forgot. I think he said, with unbelievable amount of money, or freakish amount of money, or something like that, or the money was unbelievable. So yeah, if the money's unbelievable, if the money's outrageous, um, fighters are going to go there, and then it's going to become a bidding game. So all the naysayers saying, "Oh, well, you need to make, uh, you need to have a belt in order to make more money." Well, not if you have a fan base. Ryan Garcia could, he doesn't need a belt. Usyk doesn't need a belt. I mean, a lot of fight. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua aren't going to need a belt to make a boatload of cash. It's all about your fan base. And by doing what Zuffa's doing, by introducing us to these fighters, at the earlier ages, and some of these other fight cards that has nothing to do with Zuffa, like the one I was telling you from Dublin last week. Those are the cards that you need to watch, because you will start to see quality fighters, and then nobody needs no stinking belt. That's why the sanctioning bodies should just shut up, let the fighters, go with whoever they want as far as promotional and management, and hope that you get some good fighters to wear your belts. What else are you going to do? Because what seems to be happening now is the sanctioning bodies are picking the fighters, and whoever they can get the most money out of somehow gets in there for. I mean, look, do you know Frank Warren has the rights to all those heavyweights, except for I don't. He might even have Gassiev, but He doesn't have KBL. Oh, maybe he does. I know he's got Dubois and Wardley, so it'll be interesting to see. But I can't wait to see Jay Opetaia fight. I like the fight against him and Mikaelian. I also think that if that fight does happen, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about it over the next few days, um, I think it's going to be good for the cruiserweight division. That's for sure. And um, you might have to see. My man Joel popped in the chat room and he's correcting me. Yeah, I thought he had KBL. Joel's saying yes, he has KBL, but he doesn't have Gassiov. Yeah, I knew for sure he had Dubois and Wardley and KBL. What's his name threw me off. Uh, and Coach, of course. Well, I'll post what Coach says because he's got them all listed for you here. He does. I mean, Frank Warren. Remember when Don King had all of the heavyweights? Well, Frank Warren seems to have a bunch of them too. So